The new car smell is still in the air when the damage is already done. You drive off the lot. The paperwork is signed. The monthly payment is set. For a few days, the car feels like proof that things are going well. Then the first week passes. The second. By the time the temporary tag comes off, the vehicle has already lost a meaningful slice of its value. That loss does not show up on any bill. It simply vanishes from your net worth while you are busy enjoying the ride. Most people never calculate the full cost. They look at the payment and decide whether it fits the budget. The real destruction happens in the gap between the price paid and the value that remains, multiplied by the years of capital that could have been doing something else. This matters more now than it did a generation ago. New vehicles have become significantly more expensive in real terms. Average transaction prices sit well above what many households can absorb without stretching. At the same time, financing has grown longer and more creative. 72 and 84-month loans are common. Negative equity rolls from one car into the next. The machine that turns income into lasting wealth gets interrupted every few years by a large, rapidly depreciating purchase that feels necessary. Start with the depreciation itself. A new car typically loses 15 to 25% of its value in the first year. Some models do worse. That is not a slow fade. It is an immediate transfer of wealth from the buyer to the seller and the broader market. Buy a $45,000 vehicle and you may be looking at a paper loss of $8,000 to $11,000 before the first oil change. The car still works. It still looks new. Your net worth does not care. Assets are marked to what they can actually be sold for, not what they cost last month. The loss continues. By year 3, many vehicles have shed 40 to 50% of their original price. By year 5, the curve flattens, but the early damage is permanent. Compare that trajectory to almost any other major purchase. A house, for all its costs and risks, has historically held or increased value over long periods in most markets. Productive investments compound. A new car does the opposite on a predictable schedule. Financing amplifies the problem. Interest turns the purchase into a liability that outlives the steepest part of the depreciation curve. You are paying for an asset that is shrinking while the debt remains fixed or declines only slowly. In the early years, it is common to owe more than the car is worth. That negative equity becomes a trap when it is time to trade or sell. The next purchase absorbs the shortfall and the cycle continues. Insurance, registration, maintenance, and higher fuel or energy costs for larger or more complex vehicles add further drag. None of these expenses build equity. They simply keep the depreciating asset operational. The total cost of ownership over 5 or 6 years often exceeds the original purchase price by a wide margin once everything is counted. Yet the conversation rarely moves past the monthly payment. Now run the opportunity cost. Take the same money that went into the new car, down payment, sales tax, and the stream of monthly payments, and place it in a diversified investment account instead. Over 10 or 15 years, the difference becomes difficult to ignore. A person who buys a reliable used vehicle for half the price or keeps a paid-off car for several extra years and invests the gap can end up with a 6-figure advantage that the new car buyer never sees. The new car buyer has transportation and a temporary feeling of arrival. The other person has transportation and a growing claim on future cash flow. The emotional framing is powerful. A new car signals competence, progress, and status. In many social and professional circles, it functions as quiet proof that someone is doing fine. Refusing the upgrade can feel like admitting limitation. That social pressure is real. It is also expensive. The market for status is competitive and open-ended. There is always a nicer model, a fresher year, a more exclusive badge. Chasing it turns a transportation decision into a recurring wealth transfer. Contrast the public story with the private numbers. advertising and culture treat the new car as a reward for hard work. The underlying math treats it as one of the faster ways to convert earnings into a shrinking asset, while simultaneously creating a multi-year obligation. People who build substantial net worth tend to treat vehicles as tools with a cost, not as trophies with a payment plan. Many drive cars that are several years old, paid off, and reliable enough. Their net worth statements reflect the difference. There is nothing inherently virtuous about driving an old car. Reliability, safety, and reasonable comfort matter. The issue is the size of the premium paid for newness and the speed at which that premium evaporates. A 3-year-old vehicle with low mileage often delivers most of the function of a new one at a fraction of the depreciation hit. The buyer who accepts that trade-off keeps more capital working. The buyer who insists on the newest model repeatedly pays the steepest part of the curve. The broader risk sits in the pattern. One new car is manageable for many households. A sequence of them, each financed, each replacing the last before the previous loan is gone, creates a permanent drag on savings rates. The household looks middle class or upper middle class from the outside. Inside the balance sheet, a large share of discretionary cash flow is committed to an asset class that systematically loses value. Emergencies become harder to absorb. Investment contributions shrink. The timeline to any form of financial independence stretches. Some people will argue that certain vehicles hold value better or that specific brands depreciate more slowly. Relative differences exist. Absolute depreciation still occurs for nearly every new passenger vehicle in the early years. Others will note that leasing changes the equation. Leasing simply makes the depreciation explicit and ongoing. You never own the asset, and the long-term cost of continuous newness remains high. The uncomfortable truth is that the car decision is one of the largest discretionary wealth-destroying moves available to ordinary households. Housing, education, and healthcare carry their own complexities and often some residual value or necessity. A new car combines high cost, rapid depreciation, optional status signaling, and easy financing into a single package that feels normal. Normal is not the same as rational. Watch what happens when someone decides to break the pattern. They buy used or keep a vehicle longer. The monthly cash that once went to a payment begins to land in an investment account. After a few years, the account balance starts to matter. After a decade, it can exceed the original price of the car they did not buy. The person still gets to work, they still arrive. They simply arrive with more of their earnings still in their possession and still working. The system that sells new cars is not designed to optimize buyer net worth. It is designed to move inventory, generate financing revenue, and refresh the status ladder. Buyers who treat the transaction as a pure lifestyle choice often discover later that the lifestyle carried a permanent cost. Buyers who treat it as a capital allocation decision tend to keep more of what they earn. What would the average household balance sheet look like if the default assumption shifted from new every few years to reliable and paid off for as long as possible? The answer is not small.